Can you identify yourself?
Stuart Elkind, Company K, 86th Infantry.
And tell me the dates that you served with the 10th Mountain Division.
I was with the 10th from, I believe, January of 43 to the end of the war, which was we came back in April, or May of 45.
And tell me your highest rank.
Highest rank was corporal, actually T5.
And tell me a little bit about what your job was in the 10th. I'm sure you had many jobs, but...
My job in the 10th started off as being a mail clerk, and then I became a rifleman, and I finally ended up as a radio man and wire man.
Now, in that capacity, you had some pretty unusual experiences, especially up at Della Tortilla.
That's true.
How about if you tell me a little bit about what the fighting was like at the top of Della Tortilla?
Well, at the Della Tortilla, we worked our way up the mountain, and when we finally got to the top, and it was hard fighting all the way, when we got to the top, we developed our command post, and our platoons dug in because we were very sure that at that night we would have a counterattack. And they were correct. They had a very fierce counterattack. But we dug in, there was snow, it was cold, and we waited, I guess, from the time we finished fighting, which was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we were able to dig in and wait for the counterattack. Counterattack was preceded by a fierce artillery barrage, so fierce that nobody could get out of the foxholes. And it lasted for approximately an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. When we were ready to repulse the counterattack, the platoon that was composed for radio and wire was made up of 3 men, myself and 2 sergeants. One sergeant was in Florence having a hemorrhoidectomy, so he was out of service. The other sergeant was so traumatized by the shelling that he refused to come out of his foxhole, and he just stayed there. So I was the only one left to do the work that was necessary. During the shelling, the wiring that we had laid in the afternoon was all blown apart. And my captain said that I had to go out and repair the wires. The only way I could do that was to hold on to the wire and run along where we had laid it until I came to a break. When I got to the break, I had to find the other end and splice them together. And I started doing that at, I would say, around 10 or 10:30 in the evening. And the shelling was still going on, not as intense, but still going on. And a couple of times I was blown around and I lost my pliers. And I had no tool to do the splicing with. So I had to resort to tearing off the insulation with my teeth and making whatever splices I could by hand. I still have the ridges in my teeth where I chipped my teeth. And every time a dentist wanted to repair it, I said, no, that's my remembrance. And that was basically Della Tortilla. And we repulsed them, we held our position, and we went on from there.
Now, by the time Della Tortilla occurred, the 10th Mountain had lost the advantage of a surprise attack.
Correct.
So, how do you think that affected casualty rates there? How do you think it affected how the fighting went?
Well, I think the fighting became more predictable. I think we knew more or less what the enemy was going to do. The enemy certainly knew what we were trying to do. And the I think the entire campaign became much more predictable because we knew that once we got past the Apennines, it was just a matter of chasing the Germans. And it was who could run fastest, whether you could run fastest backwards or you could run faster forward. And it ended up that you could run faster forward.
When you guys were making your way to the top of Della Caraccia, did you have any doubts about, or any question about how much firepower you were going to be facing?
Yes, we were concerned, very concerned. And because we knew that for some reason they were extremely intent on holding that position. And we didn't know, I don't remember really whether we knew how many troops were opposing us, but they were fighting fiercely. And you can sort of determine how badly somebody wants to hold their position in how hard the fighting is. In some instances, we were able to move along rather rapidly because the Germans weren't opposing us. And then all of a sudden, whether it was a different outfit or whether somebody just got behind them and said, you've got to stand here and hold your ground, it stiffened up. And on Della Caraccia, it stiffened up. And they really wanted to take that mountain back.
Did they have a lot of reinforcements they sent in for the counterattack?
For the counterattack, they sent in a lot of reinforcements. I think what they did was consolidate most of the area into that one force because that was a major counterattack. It lasted almost the whole night. It was really a horrible night.
Well, I mean, do you even remember having a bit of sleep that night?
No, there was no sleep. No, at all, because I remember finishing up, had to be about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And we had started, the shelling had started at about 8 the night before. So there was no time for rest. There was no way that you could stop and just relax.
What were you thinking when you were out there repairing, splicing together the phone lines?
I was just thinking to go to the next spot where it was broken. It's amazing. You don't think. You're taught all of these years how to do your job. And I guess if you learn your job well, you just do it and you don't think about it. You don't think, am I going to get back? What's going to happen? You just think, I got to get to the next one and fix it. And I got to get to the next one and fix it. And it's almost automatic that if you stop to think, I think if I had stopped to think, I couldn't have gone on because it was an awful amount of confusion. So you just did your job.
Well, you had an interesting occupation in that really all you did was follow the wire, right?
In that particular time, I did. You must understand that a radio man is really very exposed because the radio has a very high antenna, and the antenna can be seen. And the enemy knows that wherever the radio is, the officers are. And they will direct their fire at that radio because they know that the officer is going to be right there. So it puts you in a rather dangerous spot. And I know that we went out on patrol, and this was after Della Caraccia. And we were still in the Apennine Mountains, and we were working our way towards the Po Valley. And there was a night reconnaissance and combat patrol. And I think of all the things that I was most concerned with and most afraid of were night patrols. And I was chosen to be the radio man on that patrol. It was rather disturbing to stand there and put the black charcoal on your face and your hands. And there were about 10 or 11 of us, plus a lieutenant. And we were told to go out. We knew the Germans were out there. And when we got ready, off we went. It was very dark, and it was maybe 10 o'clock at night. And after about an hour of going through a heavily wooded area, expecting at any minute that we were going to be ambushed from either side, I felt my aerial hit something above, and I could hear it clink. And I felt something on my ankles, and I knew I was in a minefield. And the officer, of course, was close by, and I told him what the story was, and he stopped everybody at that moment. And we couldn't move. At least I couldn't move, because I was afraid of tripping a wire. And nobody knew how to get us out of there, so I had a radio back for help, for someone to come up who could cut us out of the minefield. We waited there for an hour, standing stuck in the middle of a minefield, not able to move, expecting the Germans to come and just mow us down. But the fellow finally came, and he got us out of the minefield, and we proceeded on our way. We got to a knoll, and we heard the Germans ahead of us. There was a small ravine between us and them. And we settled ourselves in the top of the ravine, and we decided that we would direct fire on the Germans. And I would say, we don't know how many there were. Maybe it was a platoon, maybe it was a company. And I was asked to direct the artillery. First barrage that came fell short, fortunately behind us. And then we redirected the distance, and we began to blast the enemy. No. No. Oh. In the middle of this?
In the middle of this.
I don't have it.
You don't have it? What'd you do? Yeah, you're Carl Hitt, right? Clark.
We began shelling, and we could hear the screaming. And I still hear one fella calling for his mother. And I directed that shelling for maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, until there was no more sound. We had obliterated the entire group. And we never went across the ravine to find out how many there were. But we turned around and came back. And I have to tell you that it has lived with me for 57 years of what I did, and was it necessary? And it was an awful night, And the other side of the coin, I think it happened in Torboline here, the last battle that we had. And I was running around during the bombing and the shelling in Torboline. And my canteen was empty. And I always knew that I had to have a full canteen, because if I got hit, I would have the sulfur and I would have to drink water. So I found a stream, and I put my rifle down, and I was filling my canteen with water, and I looked next to me, and right next to me was a German soldier filling his canteen. And we looked at each other, and I guess both of us were a little tired of killing. And we just filled our canteen, and we both went our way. And over the years, I often wondered if he ever thought about that situation. because I feel that he spared my life, and I certainly know I spared his. And I think it was in a direct response to what I did in that ridge, that I just didn't want any more killing.
K Company and some machine gun elements of